What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Show, where I, Graham G.S. and Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network and on Peacock. And today we're talking the latest episode of Raw Talk for December 13th, 2021. The first thing that Jackie Redmond and Matt Camp do to kick off the episode from the studio is recap all of Bobby Lashley's wins from Monday's Raw, including over Kevin Owens, then Seth Rollins, and then over the WWE Champion Bobby Lashley, or rather Big E, in the night's main event. Now, the main event match itself was great. I will say this. I put this more in detail. I put more in detail in my written review over on WrestleRant.com. I also mentioned this on Twitter too, but if Bobby Lashley is going to go in there in one episode of Raw and beat every member of the WWE Championship match at day one, not only should he earn entry into the match of the pay-per-view, he should be the fucking champion. And I love Big E. But that booking made absolutely no sense. It made Bobby Lashley look like an absolute monster, don't get me wrong. But it almost made him look too dominant, to the point where I know Big E was protected in defeat with the way that he lost on Monday night, but he literally beat every member, pinned or tapped out or submitted, any of those men. All three men in the span of 3 hours. So the Fatal 4-Way then tells me he doesn't have to be, unless it's elimination style, that could be added at some point later on, but he doesn't have to be pinned to lose that match. That, to me, makes absolutely no sense. But anyway, the special analyst on the show, and I put special in very, light quotation marks there, is none other than Jerry the King Lawler, who was on Talking Smack on Saturday. What did he fucking do? He adds absolutely nothing to these shows. He has admitted before on his own podcast as of a few weeks ago, he doesn't even watch the product. He doesn't watch the product. They have him fly in for the pre-shows, probably the next one on New Year's Day, if he's not busy, that is. They'll probably fly him in for that, but now he's appearing on Raw Talk and Talking Smack, commenting on a product that he admittedly does not watch, and he crams all of his homework in at the very last second, and I'm sure this episode of Raw was no different. If you listen to his comments, and the fact that he says absolutely nothing of note whatsoever, of any real merit, should tell you all you need to know about what Jerry Lawler's knowledge of the product currently is. And I don't even advise him to sit there and watch Raw or SmackDown every week. I mean, how could he? The shows really aren't that good on a weekly basis. But it's funny when they bring these people in. I can tell Booker T watches the product every week. I mean, he talks about it every week on his own podcast. Jerry Lawler does not. So, and he admitted to as such on his own podcast, I believe, or on someone else's podcast too, not watching the product weekly. But anyway, he says, going back to Bobby Lashley, he says that Bobby earned everyone's respect with the wins he stacked up on Monday night. Matt Camp praises Big E's performance in the main event. Jerry Lawler called MVP the difference maker, though, in that main event, costing Big E the victory. And Lawler says the best course of action for that main event at day one shouldn't be taking sides. It should be every man for himself. Because if you start taking sides, people could start turning on each other, pinning each other for the championship, and that leaves two other men who aren't going to get pinned and are going to lose that match, which makes sense. Again, nothing really of note here, no groundbreaking information from anyone involved, but that's basically what they said. They then recap the Dirty Dogs win over Finn Balor and Damian Priest in tag team action. The finish saw Austin Theory distract Finn Balor with a selfie at ringside on the ring apron that allowed Dolph Ziggler to pin Finn Balor for the victory. So it did further the feud, a bit of a lame finish. It furthered the feud, the match was good, but that finish is going to get a lot of people buzzing, and maybe not exactly for the right reasons. I like the Balor and Theory feud. I like the idea of it. It's not like Balor lost clean, but the idea of Dolph Ziggler pinning Finn Balor in 2021, for some reason, just doesn't sit right with me. Anyway, we hear from the Dirty Dogs backstage at Raw with, I believe, Kevin Patrick? I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was Sarah Schreiber, I think. I don't even remember. But Ziggler says they always deliver. They always steal the show. And the champions got to watch their backs, whether it be Damian Priest or whoever, or RK Bro. They're coming for the gold. And Rude says that Theory didn't help them. And then he basically just repeats himself. And then they head off to Hooters. So that was their interview in a nutshell. Nothing of note there whatsoever. Back to the studio, Jackie Redmond and Matt Camp replay the Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan match, or the segment rather, from Monday's Raw, where they confirmed at day one it's going to be a rematch for the Raw Women's Championship. And Matt Camp questions what shape Liv Morgan's going to be in. She was attacked pretty viciously on Monday's Raw. So is Becky going to be picking up the scraps? Will Liv be 100%? I guess we'll find out come day one in a few weeks. Redmond then praises the role that Queen Zelina Vega finds herself on at the moment, from beating Rhea Ripley this week to beating Nikki Ash last week, becoming one half of the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions with Carmella just a few short weeks ago. Vega is on quite the roll right now, and we hear backstage from Vega and Carmella being interviewed by Kevin Patrick. This was another backstage interview where it felt like it went on forever, but I literally have no notes written down because they said absolutely nothing of substance whatsoever. Vega had noted that she's undefeated as the queen, which is true. She's lost, or rather won, all of her matches, which is the exact opposite of what she was doing before she became queen. So at least they're consistent with that. But then they talk about Carmella being the most beautiful woman in all of WWE. Vega being the most royal woman in all of WWE. And Patrick goes along with it. Kevin Patrick just completely simps over these two women. And that was the interview in a nutshell. And it was at which point when they went back to the studio where I'm watching the show with Alexis and she mentions that Matt Camp with his new haircut looks like a fucking tennis ball. I don't know why I found that funny. I did. I wrote that down here. No offense to Matt Camp. I think he looks fine. But I thought that was a funny comment from Alexis that was more entertaining than anything else I had seen up to the show, on the show up to this point. Anyway, they then replay the Edge versus Miz segment, the Miz TV segment that saw Edge get attacked by the Miz at the end there, and Maurice slapped Miz, and they talk about that, and Lawler says he's simply looking out for himself, and I had tweeted out, I'm like, are they already breaking up Miz and Maurice as an on-air act? I mean, they literally just reunited on the show fucking 2 weeks ago. Maurice wasn't even on Raw last week. So they were literally on the same page for one Raw segment 2 weeks ago. Now, I was notified from other people on Twitter, in the responses, which makes sense, that this could all be a ruse. And maybe Maurice comes back. I don't know about costing Edge the win at day one, because they are married in real life. I mean, why would Edge think that Maurice would help him? He would be a fucking moron to fall for that. But maybe they attack him afterward. Maybe this is their way of swerving the audience, so to speak, and then building towards an intergender tag team match at Royal Rumble. Why you would need Maurice to even tease having tension with Miz on the show, as opposed to just having Maurice allowing Miz to beat Edge at the pay-per-view, I don't know. This company tends to make things 10 times more convoluted than they need to be, but just throwing that out there. Anyway, so they then hype up the finals of the Arcade Bronament, which are coming up at some point between the Mysterios and the Profits. They also recapped Riddle versus Otis. It saw Otis pick up the surprisingly clean win, which I would not have done. Riddle, it feels like he's lost a lot more lately than he probably should in various singles matches. He's lost before to AJ, not in a while. He's lost to almost a fair bunch. He lost to, again, Otis on this show, which was just weird. And it was a nice win for Otis, being from Minnesota. But still, that was strange, I thought. Matt Camp says that Riddle should probably do a better job of studying his opponents. And then backstage, we hear from AJ Styles alongside Omos, coming off their miscommunication last week on Raw, and now they appear to be on the same page. AJ calls it growing pains, and he assures everyone that it's all under control, and he questions why everyone's worried, and he says they will be champions again. And that was basically the show. To close out the show, Lawler said that Styles is whistling in the graveyard right now, which basically means he's trying to put on a happy face, even though we're all aware, and AJ probably himself, we all know this is not ending on a good note between AJ and Omos, and it's going to end very poorly very soon. And Matt Camp calls it a potential clash of styles, pun intended, between AJ and Omos. And, Omos might be thinking, coming off all the praise he's gotten from Undertaker and people online, he might be thinking he doesn't need AJ anymore. He doesn't need his help anymore. And that was about it. And then Lawler says his pick to win the WWE Championship match at the pay-per-view is none other than Bobby Lashley. So that was Raw Talk in a nutshell for December 13th, 2021. I mean, the show is basically the same every single week, but I thought this was a below-average edition. The Dirty Dogs interview, complete waste. The Vega and Carmella interview, complete waste. The AJ and Omos one had a bit more substance, but not a whole ton. It just was kind of fine for what it was. further told the story of AJ and Omos trying to get back on the same page. Ultimately, I don't think they will. I think Omos is going to turn on AJ. He's going to beat AJ. Then we're all going to complain about the handling of AJ in WWE at this stage of his career. But anyway, that's Raw Talk in a nutshell for December 13th, 2021. Thank you guys for checking out this video. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Have an awesome rest of your week, guys. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.